this going, and then
$1 million in sales a year. Okay, we net about 40% of that, so we walk away with about 50-60 million bucks a year in profits. We also have a real estate portfolio that is one of my main businesses. We have $400 million worth of deals under contract right now. Okay, now when I say we, I'm talking about myself and my company. I did that with no money. All these businesses were started with no money. Big heart. How many of you got a big heart? Okay, heart, big passion. Okay, how many of you have courage? Dude, you got to have courage. You want to make money, you got to have courage. All right. How many of you are almost never satisfied? You're like, no matter what I get, it's never enough. Okay, say yay if you're never satisfied. Well, then I'm in the right room. Now, if you're satisfied, if you're making sense of what you have, you don't need this. Okay, I want to help you get to the next place, and I don't want to do it in baby steps. I want to do it in big, giant leaps now. The people that operate this planet, a handful, the 1%ers, have different information than you have. Okay, they're not talking about going to college. They're not talking about saving money. You don't hear wealthy people talking about, I need to buy a house. Warren Buffett. You know Warren Buffett? Warren Buffett is not like, I need to buy a house. I have to have a home to live in. Warren Buffett bought one house his whole life. He never talks about it. What's he buying? He's buying businesses. What's he investing his money in? Businesses, right? He's not buying a house where money dies. How many of you have your minds open today? You're like, hey, I want to change. I want to change my life. How many want to change? You have to give something up, right? If you're taking notes, you have to give something up if you want to change. I cannot change and hold on at the same time to the things I believe in the most.
I love that. That if you are satisfied with where you are, there's very little that anybody can do to help you. We can only help people who want to have more than what they have right now. And to go with that, if you want more than what you have right now, you have to be willing to give something up to get it, right? I absolutely love that concept and that mindset. So everything we're going to do today is going to be focused on that concept. Okay, I do want to start just very briefly by bringing you up to speed on a couple of contests and events. Last week, we had the Who's the Boss contest. I know Landon and Kevin were really focused on that one. The good news is that we were in every single drawing, and we had managers in every single drawing. The bad news is other people won the drawing, so that's okay. It is what it is. But I wanted to show you the proof so you weren't like coming to me like, hey, where's my $150? Well, Justin Ludwig is enjoying it. I do love that man. I know. It's all good. But we started yesterday officially the March Madness contest, which I'm really excited about. I love this competition. Number one, what is it? Every $500, or first off, excuse me, you sell $500, you get one chance in a drawing. $1,000, you get two chances in the drawing. $3,000, you get three chances in the drawing. And every week they're going to pick a winner of $250 worth of free Cutco. This contest will be going on for 4 weeks. So $1,000 of Cutco will be given away. And at the end of the contest period, you can win more than once. And they'll just say, hey, you have this much free Cutco. Pick anything in the catalog that you want, and it's yours. So that's a pretty sweet deal. For those of you that are getting into management training, when we get to our summer kickoff conference on April 12th, the top 5 branch and district managers and the top 4 assistant managers will be sitting at the champions reception with Earl Kelly. You guys get a higher level, a nicer dinner. I think last year they did filet mignon for the champions reception. And on top of that, it's not just the food, it's also the networking, because you're having dinner with literally 12 people that are the best in the entire Northeast region. So that's a powerful section to be in, all right? And then we also have the March Madness brackets. I blew this up so to be easy to read. This week, we ranked as the 10th seed. We're up against Darren Gavin and Fernando Zuniga. I am hesitant to say that it'll be an easy win. what I will say is, as long as we don't poo-poo in the bed, we will win and advance this round. But we also need to not poo-poo the bed, right? Now, I will tell you, I'm nervous for next week, because next week we're up against Kyle Preman, who's the 3rd seed. To give you some perspective, our office has been pretty consistently selling between $3,000 and $6,000 of new business a week, which is pretty solid. Kyle's office has been consistently selling $8,000 a week. Okay, so it's a stiff competition. And I don't know about you guys. I looked at the bracket and I was like, oh, the first bracket's great. Oh, shoot. That was how I felt about that. Right? So here's what I'll tell you. You know, this week we need you guys to hit your goals for all of the reasons that you would want to hit your goals. Next week, all right, be ready to come to the field ready to play, right? Because we'll need you guys on the field. We need you on the field this week too. I'm not saying we don't, but next week, like we're going to need you guys on the field, and I'll be on the field with you. So just wanted to put that up there first. That said, I wanted to share with you, I did some demos this week. I was talking to Kevin last week. And one thing as a district manager is I don't get out and do demos all the time, because when I do demos, it does take my attention and my focus away from the office. So as a service to you guys, I typically don't do a lot of demos to make sure that I'm engaged with you. And I'm a big believer that when you chase 2 rabbits, you catch 0 rabbits, right? At the same, Perry's thinking about that one.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Chase 2 rabbits, they both get away. Right? If you chase 1, you're going to catch the 1.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Welcome to the table, Perry. But this past couple of days, Ian asked me about a month ago. He said, hey, can I do the service event at your office that you guys saw him wrapping up? And I was like, well, if I'm shutting down the office for the bulk of 2 days, it only makes sense for me to email my customers and invite them. So I had 4 of my customers come in yesterday, and then 1.5 of them came in today. And then I also did an appointment last night myself. So I met with 6 customers in the past 2 days, right? And my stats, so I updated this last night. So I met with 5 people yesterday. I made 4 sales. Okay, now here's what my sales look like. And I want to be very transparent with you. I sold a $68 sale, a $118 sale, and a $237 sale. Those 3 sales are below average. In fact, I would say 2 of them are subpar, yes? And then I had 1 that was $1,500. That is always how it shakes out. When you do the averages, I had 80% buy. My average order was $490.50, and I collected 10 referrals per appointment. So the first thing, and this is worth taking a note on and being very aware of, is that people make the mistake all the time of thinking, oh, I had a small sale, I'm not going to hit my goal. Or, oh, this fell through, I'm not going to hit my goal. And that is wrong thinking. But the way that you think informs the way that you act. So you have to be careful of that. You have to realize that when you have an average order of $350, that usually means you've got a lot of orders that are under 300. You might even have some that are under 100. And then you get the big sales. And on average, 1 in 10 sales is over $1,000. Right? That's just average if you're not very good at the job. Okay? And that's the way it always shakes out. And the large sale always brings the averages up. So you got to make sure that you're interpreting your results correctly, because one mistake I see people make all the time is, oh, I had 1 off day, or I had an off result, so therefore I'm going to give up on my goals. And if you give up on your goals, that will inform your actions. So you have to commit to the process and just realize it's a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game. Also, I'm at $4,081 for the month of March so far. And there is 0 reason that me meeting with 7 customers, I should beat any of you. So just FYI, 4,081 is your number to beat. And I fully expect that by the end of March, I'm the lowest ranking rep on the team. You guys tracking with me? Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm not doing any more demos for the rest of March. Okay, so.
That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So don't let me beat you is what I'm saying. I'm just making eye contact, bro. That's all I'm doing over here. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that again. I'm taking Perry out to dinner last week because I challenged him to beat me, and he did. I'll do that again. Yes, because you beat me last week. Is what I was trying to say. I'll do that again. If you beat me for the month of March, I will take you out to dinner at the beginning of April.
20-ounce steak for that.
I'll treat you. I'll treat you. Okay. So I will tell you this, and this I want you guys to take a few notes on, and I want you guys engage with me here, because I'll tell you, I've noticed a trend across the board. I've noticed it with many of you guys in the office. I've noticed it with some of the people that I'm working with across the DC Metro division. And I've also noticed it outside Vector with some of the people that I'm coaching, my coaching clients. And one thing that I've noticed as a trend in my coaching conversations recently is that people are telling me, oh, like, it's just really hard at this time of year. I'm so busy, right? And obviously students are like, oh, midterms and semester. And my business owners that I coach with, they're all like, oh, tax season. But everybody's freaking out. I don't know what it is about March. But everyone's like, oh, it's so busy. I need to lower my goals, or I don't know if I can do it, or, I'm working so hard. I need to pull back. And I'm just going to call BS. Okay. I'm going to tell you that if you feel like you're working all the time, either you're wrong or you're right, but you're working on the wrong things. Okay. And that's something that I would write down. If you feel like you're working all the time, either that's not accurate and it's just a story that you're telling yourself, or you are working all the time, but you're working on the wrong things. Okay, I was talking to one person a couple of days ago, and this person was telling me, like, oh, I'm so busy. My schedule is completely full. And I said, okay, walk me through your schedule. And he says, oh, I'm working, I'm in the office like 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock. I was like, okay, what about the rest of your day? And he's like, oh, well, I'm busy. I said, okay, tell me what busy looks like. And what I found out is that this person is sleeping in until 10 o'clock or sometimes 11 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, well, there's half your day, right? You're waking up at lunchtime, by the time you get out of bed and, you're functional, it's lunchtime. And then you feel like you need a lunch break, right? So I was like, you're wasting half your day in the morning. And then I said, what are you doing in the evening? He's like, well, I work 11 to 7. I'm fried. Come on, grow that up. Okay. What I told this person, I said, listen, you got to join the real world. You got to come join us in the real world. The real world, right? You get a career kind of job, and there's no really, honestly, 9 to 5 jobs really don't exist anymore. Okay, most of those jobs now are 8:30 to 5 or 8 to 5. Okay, I used to work in corporate when I left Vector for a couple of years, and one of my jobs was an 8:30 to 5 and one was an 8 to 5. But that's a normal work day, right? And I was like, dude, if you're not even starting the day until 11 o'clock or noon at a corporate job, you've missed half of your shift. You've missed half of your day, right? And then I said, for people that work out, they either wake up at 5:30 a.m., get a workout in the morning, and then they go to work, or they work their 9-hour day and then they go to the gym. Parents, they got to get their kids up on the bus, right, ready to go to school. Then they go do their work day, and then they got to engage with the kids when they get home. But I was like, if you're going to be in the real world, this 8 hours and I'm fried, that's not going to serve you very long. So that was a conversation I had the other day, is you got to expand your capacity, and you got to make sure that you're becoming the person that you need to become to experience what you want to experience, right? And that right there is a big one. I was talking to another one of my clients, and she was telling me, she's a business owner, she runs her own company, and she was telling me, like, oh, I'm so busy, I'm doing all this stuff, right? And she was actually telling me when I got in the coaching call, she's like, let me tell you all the things I want to celebrate. And she was telling me how she built a funnel, and she was running ads for this new business program and generating leads. And she's like, I'm going to do this. And she's like, and I was like, all right, tell me what that looks like. Right. And she was walking through, she's all excited. And then I asked her 2 questions that I think you need to be asking yourself. Okay. The first one is, cool, that's awesome. How much did you sell today? She goes, well, you can probably guess. What was the answer? 0.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, how much did you sell yesterday? 0. It's like, oof, okay, well, hey, when I had this conversation, it was March 11th. I said, how much have you sold for the month of March? And she said, 1 new client. one new client for the first half of March. I said, okay, well, what are you working on? Like, what projects are you working on right now? And she got all excited about this funnel again. So the second question I asked her, I said, cool, the funnel's awesome. The funnel's going to be great. But how long will it take you before that generates revenue? And she was projecting 3 weeks. She's projecting 3 weeks. Now, does the funnel need to happen? Yeah. Is the funnel going to be a valuable addition to her business to generate leads? By the way, funnel, for those of you guys who are uninitiated, it's a website that generates leads. It's the gist of it, okay? It generates clients for her to close. But I said, that's great. Having a new lead generation source, that is absolutely beneficial. And I wouldn't tell you not to do it. But if you've got one new client for the month of March, you sold nothing yesterday, you sold nothing today, and you're planning on putting all of your energy into this project that's not going to create business for 3 weeks, what are you going to eat until then? Right? And what we actually found out, the truth is, she had to pull money out of her savings to pay her staff, and she hadn't paid herself. And I was like, so how are you going to live for the next 3 weeks? Right? I was like, you can't stop selling today and put all of your hopes and dreams in this future opportunity that's down the road. I was like, you got to be making money today and working on the funnel. Now, I'll tell you, she has another coach that she works with, and this other coach was telling her something different, right? What the other coach was telling her was put the funnel on hold and just work on generating leads today, right? And while I understand that, I don't think that was good advice. And I told her this. I said, you got to be doing both, right? You can't, not grow your business and just work on getting food in your mouth today, but you also can't not eat for the next 3 weeks. I was like, you really need to do both, right? She's like, well, I'm so busy. I'm doing this. And I said, cool. What you need to identify, and this is going to be a thing. Actually, this is my first point on my slide. Look at me go. There's a difference between being busy and productive. Busy fills your hours. Productive makes you money. Okay? So what I told her to do, and I'm going to recommend you guys do the same, is really look at your schedule. Really look at what you're spending your time on. And are you spending enough time on income producing activities? Okay? There are in Vector. Now for other businesses, honestly, for pretty much anything entrepreneurial, the 3 things I'm going to show you, they apply pretty much anywhere you go. But I realize if you work an hourly job, A, you're underpaid. B, this is different. A, you're underpaid, right? But in anything entrepreneurial, there's 3 things that are going to be income producing activities. These are directly related to Vector, but I firmly believe that these apply to any business. Number 1 is your networking time. Number 2 is your phone time. And number 3 is your demo time. Networking time, phone time, and demo time.
Networking time, what is that?
I'm going to walk you through all 3 of them.
Cool.
Okay, but these are the 3 activities that make you money. Number 1, networking time in Vector is when you're building up your list. Okay, you can call the list anything you like. We used to call it an attack list. However, an author that I really enjoy made a comment in his book that hit me in the heart. He said, how would you feel if you were on somebody else's attack list and you saw your name? I was like, ooh, that would feel good. So he said in the book, and it spoke directly to my heart, he said, instead of calling it an attack list, call it your families to serve list. Because if you saw your name on someone that said families to serve list, man, that just feels totally different.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so whenever you hear me talk about families to serve list, what I'm talking about is your call list. Okay? But networking time is the time you spend building up your call list. Now, one observation I've had, and again, this truly, I find this with Vector sales reps. I also find it with all the other businesses and entrepreneurs that I talk to. It's a common pattern for humans, I think, humans. But they spend time prospecting, but they're not really using their activity well, okay? I was talking to someone and I was asking about her networking time, and she goes, oh yeah, I went on Facebook and I joined like 2 groups and I was posting in the group. And I was like, great, how many leads did that get you? And she's like, well, I put up some posts. She's like, I can put up my post again. I was like, why? The same people that saw your post last week are going to be the same people that see your post this week, right? It's the same audience, right?
And she's like, well, I noticed people post in the group asking for help, and then I respond. And I'm like, cool. How many comments do those posts have? And she's like, well, like 30. I'm like, great. So you're 1 out of 30. So it'll take you 30 posts to get 1 lead. Right? And what she realized is that she's spending a lot of time doing activity, but not activity that's going to directly put names and numbers on her families to serve list. You guys tracking with me? Now, what I used to do when I was a full-time rep, and for Kevin and Landon, I know you guys have heard this story many times, but it's for all of your benefit. What I used to do when I was a full-time sales rep, and selling Cutco was my only source of income to feed myself and also feed my wife, I would spend 2 hours a week. Okay, and I would do it on Saturday morning. And my routine was I would allow myself to sleep in on Saturday. So I'd wake up around 8 or 8:30 and I would go make breakfast. Hey, I'd make breakfast and I make a really good breakfast. And I was adorable. I would wake up my wife right before breakfast was ready, right? So she'd come out of bed and eat. We'd have breakfast together. And then she was kind enough to clean up for me. And I would lock myself. At the time, I didn't have a home office. Actually, at the time, I had a 1-bedroom apartment. So I had like my little station. I had my computer desk in the corner. But I would tell my wife, I'm going to work. And I would sit at my computer desk. And she just knew that was my bubble and not to come in my bubble. Okay? There were other times that I really didn't work well at home. And so I would go to the library. I would just go to the public library. And they have quiet rooms, right? And I would just go in the quiet room and I was like, I'm at work. There's nothing that can distract me here. There were other times, now I have a home office in my house. So when I go in there and I close the door, my wife knows I'm at work, right? And not to bother me respectfully, right? But she knows I'm at work, don't come in, you know? But either way, I would go to a spot that I identified as this is work, even if I was at my house. You guys tracking with me? And for 2 hours, all I would do would be build up my call list. Now for me, and I'm going to show you my schedule in a few minutes, exactly what this looked like for me. But again, this was different from all of you guys, and I get that. But for me at the time, this was my only job. I had the team meeting on Wednesdays, the PSP meetings on Sundays, and I was trying to sell Cutco the rest of the time, right? So for me, a full work week was 20 appointments. And I knew my numbers. I knew that for me to book 20 appointments, I needed to make 100 phone calls on Sunday, and I needed to make 100 phone calls on Wednesday, okay? So if I was gonna make 100 phone calls on Sunday and 100 phone calls on Wednesday, how many numbers did I need on my list? 50. I needed 50 unique individuals to call if I was gonna blow up their phones, right? Or 100 would give me a chance to call them once on Sunday, once on Wednesday, and not have to harass people. But I had a target where every week when I came into the office on Sunday, I needed to have a minimum of 50 new names and numbers on my list with a target of getting to 100, right? So what I found in doing this week in and week out, week in and week out, is that I can get 30 to 50 names and numbers in 1 hour. And if I did it for 2 hours, I would get myself between 60 and 100 numbers, and that would serve me well for 1 week. And then the next Saturday, I had to do it again. By the way, that is a mistake I see a lot of people make too, that you may want to write down, like common pitfall, is that they do this once, but then they don't do it again. So they're calling the same people week after week after week after week. And the people that didn't answer the phone the first week are the same people that didn't answer the second week or the third week. And then they're coming like, oh, I've got no one else to call. I have to quit. F that. You just need networking time, right? If that's not a part of your schedule on a weekly basis, though, you're going to quote unquote run out of people to call, but you didn't actually run out of people to call. You guys tracking with me? Right? Respectfully, Perry, I know this was your experience after your first week, right? And then you got it done. You're like, oh, this changed my life, right? But you need 50 to 100 numbers per week. And here's what you do, right? Some of the activities I would do would be I would take that thought jogger sheet that you all have, and I would just write down names and names and names and names and names. And as I looked at the thought joggers page on my list right now, and I could show it to you, but for the sake of time, I won't. But on my list right now, I've got names of people that I wrote next to like my mother-in-law's name. And then I wrote 10 names that I knew I could just ask her for. Like I knew there were people that she talked about, that she'd introduced me to, right? And I didn't even know all their names. There was one lady in particular, when my wife and I were first dating, I went to her house and we had dinner there. And then my wife played her PlayStation PSP. This is old. But played PSP at their house, and I did a push-up contest with their kids. And I didn't remember any of their names. That's a lie. Pull-up contest, sorry. Pull-up contest with their kids. And I didn't remember anything about this lady, but I knew in my mind, I was like, if I could just get connected to her, I know her, and I have enough of a connection. So I went to my mother-in-law, and I told the story. I was like, who is that? And she goes, oh, that's so-and-so. I'm like, yes. Can I have her number? Right? And I got that number as an example, yeah? I wrote down my Uncle Bruce. And my Uncle Bruce is a doctor up in Connecticut, but I knew 3 of his neighbors really well. One of them used to come on beach trips with us when we did like family vacation. It was like combined, you know. There was one I used to hang out with their kids, and then one let me drive his Hummer when I was 14 years old because he's an idiot. But I wrote down on my list those 3 things. The Novella family, I knew their name. The Monsanto family, that was one of the kids. And then the rich dude with the Hummer. That's what I wrote on my list. Okay, but I went to Uncle Bruce and I said, hey, can I get these people? I wrote down on my list my older brother. Some of you guys have heard the stories about that. But he has a new wife. And I'm like, ooh, new wife means a whole new circle of leads, right? And actually, I'll tell you, they run a pest control company. So I did a little bartering operation with him. Went to his wife, Melissa, and I said, hey, I need you to give me 50 leads. How many leads do I need to give you to make it worth your time? Right? And her leads are worth like $8,000. So I told her, I'm like, I'm not giving you 50 because your leads are worth $8,000. Mine are worth 350. Right? So we agreed. I would give her 20 leads from me, and she would give me 50 leads from her. And we did. We bartered. And by the way, she closed a couple of my friends. Good on them. And I closed a couple of her friends. Right? There were a couple, all of you guys heard the story in your initial training, but my sister-in-law at the time was 16 years old. Right? My sister-in-law was actually pretty well connected. She wasn't even like the cool chick or anything. She wasn't like super social or popular necessarily, but there were a couple of her little girlfriends that I had met when they were just around the house, you know. What else? She went to a really big high school, like 400 people in a graduating class, which means I could have accessed about 2,500 people if I called all 7 graduating classes that she walked the halls with, right? I didn't end up getting all of them. I only got about 2,400, or not 2,400. I got about 1,600. It was enough. And then she was also on the basketball team, the gymnastics team. She did track and field and a martial art, and she was really involved in a youth group. And I was like, all these things, okay? And I never even got her to give me all of them, but I did get her to give me the high school directory. I got her to give me her basketball roster. I got her to give me her youth pastor. And I asked directly for the 3 of her little girlfriends that I had met. Okay, there's still a couple people, by the way, that I want from her that I don't have. There's one, I remember vividly, I dropped her off for a study date with this dude. And when I picked her up from the study date, I met the family and I was like, this house is a mansion. It's enormous. They literally, when they went to go like study, they went to the library and I was like, I need to be in this house. And I only met like that family for like 5 minutes to pick her up from a study date, but they are on my list. And I don't know their name. I just wrote the study date family. And I've never asked her for it because I haven't needed to, but if I needed to, I would tell the story to jog her memory and be like, who was that? Get the number, right? There's also this dude that she dated for a little bit. He was kind of a jerk. Kind of watch my language. He was a jerk. He wasn't a very good human, but he was a rich kid. His name is Sawyer. Obviously, he's a rich kid. So I just wrote Sawyer, Sawyer's mom, on my list. And if I needed to, I can go ask Vicky for Sawyer's mom, right? But what I'm doing, I did this with a bunch of people. I wrote down people that I don't like, by the way. There's one dude that my wife is friends with. I really don't like him. I think he's rude. I think he's a lot of things that I don't like. A lot of things. But he's well connected. He's well connected. One time we went to a party at his house. I forget why it even was. But he had, and he, by the way, very middle class, you know, not like rich or anything, but lives in a decent neighborhood. But this dude had like 300 people come to his house for a party. It was packed. It was 3 floors, the basement, the main floor, and then the upstairs. And it was freaking packed with 3Ms. And I'm in that house and I'm like, first off, I'm an introvert. So I didn't really talk a lot. Talk to my wife, kind of hide in the corner. But I'm looking around like, I need to call all these people. not talking to you. I just need you on the list. For real. By the way, I've never gone back to his house again because I think he's rude and a lot of other things. But I wrote him on my list, even though I don't like him. And I made a note that I could get him. If I did do an appointment for him, I didn't even care what he bought. I could get a lot of referrals from him. You guys tracking with me? And he likes my posts on Facebook. So even though I haven't talked to him or seen him in like 4 years, it would be easy enough for me to call him. But that's one where I choose not to. Okay, I'd rather have him on my list and choose not to call him because I don't like him. But that is better than wishing I had one more phone number to call. You guys with me on that? Okay, if I had to suck it up, I would. I just choose not to. But either way, so these are some of the things I've done. I do think, if you want to write this down, I do think that White Pages is an excellent resource. By the way, I did this for my old neighborhood. I've never even done it for my current neighborhood. Could. My old neighborhood, when I lived in Virginia. I looked up on Google Maps. By the way, if you need White Pages, this is what you do. You find all of the street names in the neighborhood. Okay, I just did it on Google Maps, right? Typed in the old address, and then on Google, I just looked at every street, and I wrote down all the streets. And then you go on White Pages and do a reverse address lookup. And if you just type in one address, you do need the full address, like a house number and everything. But once you pull up the one address, it'll show you 99 neighbors. And I just did this by going street by street, typed in every street. And in my list right now, I have probably, I know that I wrote down 18 streets in the neighborhood. I actually looked up every single human on 7 of the streets. So I still have 11 streets I've never looked up. But on 7 of the streets, I probably have 150 names and numbers written down. And all I did was one day, I used my 2 hours of networking time to just do that, right? And I was able to look up about 150 in 2 hours, and I haven't done it since. But if I needed to, I have another 11 streets in that neighborhood, and I've got however many streets from my current neighborhood, plus I've got my wife's old neighborhood, and I've got my grandma's old neighborhood, right? Not all ones that I personally live in, but ones that I have a footprint in, where I could say, hey, this is how I know you, and it's not a random stranger. You guys tracking with me? White Pages is worth your time. And you guys have all heard me say this before. You got to pay $20 for 200 lookups. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's very rare that I'll tell you to spend money to make money. For the most part, that's unnecessary, but you can't deny. You know, if you spend $20, you get 200 names and numbers. Even if you're awful, you're going to get a demo, right? Even if you're awful, you'll get a demo. And then one demo, you made your money back, so you break even.
True.
Right? Like, it doesn't take any effort or any skill. Some of you guys are more concerned about your skill than your effort. I get it. But it takes no, I'm not making eye contact with you on purpose, bro. Stop being so self-conscious. But in all seriousness, some of you guys are genuinely more concerned about your skill than your effort. You don't need a whole lot of skill to break even. And it's really easy to make a profit on that $20 investment. You guys tracking with me? One of the best things you can do is get rosters, rosters and directories, and you can ask for directories. If you find a customer that's willing to give you a lot of referrals, just ask them for their neighborhood directory. What is the worst thing that could happen? They say no, you don't get it, but that's the same as if you never asked for it. And I've had 3 different customers in my life hand me their entire neighborhood directory. Some of you guys have heard the story about the one lady I met. And I had seen a bunch of my mother-in-law's neighbors, like a handful, probably 10 or 11 or so. So I had some names to drop. So when I got to this lady, I'm like, oh, do you know the Stouts? Do you know the Halls? Do you know, I forget the others, right? And I name dropped. And at the end of it, I asked her, first off, she was really like not a good human, not very good at like people. And she was a no sale. But when I asked her for referrals, she was like, I don't want to do this. Do I have to? And I was like, well, it's the only way I stay alive and feed my wife. So please. And she's like, I don't want to. Can I just like give you my neighborhood directory? And I was like,
That's what she said.
Please.
I think you told me that. Yeah.
and her justification for it, she's like, you've already seen so many of my neighbors anyway. I was like, yeah, that's great, because I didn't have the other numbers. It's great. All right, I got a youth pastor to give me the church directory. I got my mother-in-law's homeowners association roster. I have my rugby roster, which actually to this day I've only sold Cutco to the coach. I really need to call the rest of the players because they're all old married men like me. But either way, rosters and directories are great. If you, by the way, for you youngins, high school directories are awesome. Now, just FYI, If you have a copy of your high school directory, get your high school directory. If you've graduated from high school, by the way, if you're in high school right now, you can just go to the counselor and ask for it. What I would not do is say, yeah, I want to call everybody and sell them knives. That probably will not get you the directory, right? But if you ask for it, and I'll be honest, I haven't done this in a long time because I'm old. They might give it to you. They would definitely give it to your parents if you got your parents to get it for you. If you're currently there, if you've graduated, they won't give it to you. And that makes sense, right? That makes sense. But you can get someone that goes to the school to get it, right? And I did this one time where I paid someone $50 for their high school directory. I was like, I'm going to call all the moms. It's going to be great, right? And again, there's what, 1,200 people in one of those things. Cost me $50. But if I've got 1,200 people, I'm definitely getting 3 demos. If I sold nothing, I make my money back. It is very difficult to not break even and then make a profit, right? Even if you suck. You guys tracking with me? Again, I'm not going to tell you very frequently you got to spend money to make money, but there are some times, and in my opinion, building up your network, it's a thing worth spending money on. You guys with me though? Right? So these are all different things you can do. You don't need to do everything all at once. But I do think that for 1 to 2 hours a week, it's worth your time to pick one and say, I'm going to do this. And then you do it with a target of getting 30 to 50 numbers on your list in 1 hour. So far, so good. This is good stuff so far, right? I could probably stop here and you guys will probably have what you need. But I got 2 more things for you. I got 2.5 more things for you. I got 5 things for you. Number 2 is your phone time. Okay, your phone time. You got to commit to phone calls. I was talking to Meg about this the other day. In my career, I've only met one person that actually liked making phone calls. I hate making phone calls. There was one time, oh man. So I used to commute, depending on traffic. I was commuting from Northern Virginia to Rockville because that's where the closest office was. And if I hit rush hour, it would take me 2.5 hours to get to that office. If I didn't hit rush hour, it would still take me a little over 45 minutes. If I had traffic, it could be up to 2.5 hours. It was a lot, you know, and I would go there 2 times a week. And I tried not to go there any more than that, right? And I would go up, and I would, just like you guys, we had our team meeting with a workshop in the front end, and then phone jam after that. And I would go up, and I would have a mission, and this is probably worth writing down. I would have a mission to make 100 phone calls in 3 hours. I didn't take breaks, not even between phone calls. I would go in and I would just grind for 3 hours. And this was the agreement that I had with myself. By the way, for me, it would take an average of 10 phone calls to book 1 appointment. So if I made 100 phone calls, I would book 10 appointments on average. Now, I had one time I made 100 phone calls and actually got 13 appointments. That was pretty cool. I had one time I made 119 phone calls and I got 2 appointments. That sucked. But my commitment was 100 phone calls, right? I didn't judge myself on if I got the appointments or not. I judged myself on, did I take a level of action that was appropriate for my goal, right? And the agreement that I had myself was if I made 100 dials, I could be done regardless of how many appointments I booked. So that one night I did make 119 because I was trying, but I allowed myself to stop even though I only had 2 appointments booked. You guys with me so far? I never once allowed myself to stop if I hadn't made, we call it a century phone jam, 100, right? If I had made less than 100 calls, even that one day, I got 10 appointments booked after like 70 calls. I didn't allow myself to be done, even though my goal had been 10 appointments. You guys with me on that? So that was an agreement. That wasn't between me and my manager. That wasn't between me and my wife. Wasn't even between me and God. It was between me and me. But that was a target that I said was non-negotiable. 100 dials on Sunday, 100 dials on Wednesday, right? Now, the catch is I still needed 10 appointments because at the end of the day, 100 phone calls doesn't pay the bills, right? Needed my 10 appointments. So my agreement with myself was that if I did not book 10 appointments on Sunday, I would wake up at 7 a.m. on Monday morning, and I'd be on the phone at 7:30 a.m. until 9 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday until I booked my 10th appointment. Once I got the 10th, I didn't make calls again until Wednesday. You guys tracking with me? Then on Wednesday, it started over. Wednesday, make my 100 phone calls Wednesday night. If I got my 10 appointments, didn't make phone calls again until Sunday. But if I didn't make my 10 appointments, I would make phone calls Thursday, Friday, and Saturday until I got my 10. And then I wouldn't make phone calls again. You guys get that? So there's a commitment to the phone time. And one mistake I do see a lot of reps make is that they just don't make enough phone calls. We're going to talk about that at the end here. But I see reps come in and they don't have their list ready to go. They're like scrolling through their phone list, or they're looking at a sheet of paper thinking about calling people. And you just got to, right? You've already made an agreement. I'm going to call these people. You just go down the list, call them, right? You got to make 20 to 30 calls an hour, 40 if you're double tapping, right? If you call someone, hang up, just call them right back again, right? I do count that as 2 phone calls, but you're going to make it more like 40 phone calls, right? And then if you make 20 to 40 calls an hour, you should be booking 2 to 4 appointments per hour. What was your question?
So if somebody doesn't answer, do you ever leave a voicemail
Yes.
for them? Okay.
Yes, what I
have
typically
been,
do,
I just wasn't-
the first time I call, actually, I have a handout that I'll give you after this, but the first time I call, I do not leave a voicemail. I double tap, meaning I call them. If they don't answer, hang up, just call immediately. And a lot of people answer then. And if they don't, they see my number on call ID. I get a good numbers of callbacks. And then I call them a second, a third, and a fourth time. And I leave voicemail number 1, voicemail number 2, and voicemail number 3. And then for me personally, I never call someone again after the 4th call. But if you want to do that, you got to keep adding to your list. Does that make sense? So that's the phone time. And that was my commitment to my phone time. Yeah. And then the final thing is demos. You got to get in front of a certain number of customers. And I'll tell you, I love the big sales. Right? I got lucky actually in the 6 demos that I've done in March. 2 of them were over $1,000 in sales. That's above the average. Usually I would have had to do 20 appointments to get $2,000 sales. I did it in 6. So I got a little bit lucky, right? I do love those sales. They are fun. My lady last night, I was struggling with the math. It was bad. It was really bad. It was bad. My maths were failing me. And she actually asked me, I was at her house. I wanted to be in the house for like 45 minutes and then not be there anymore. I was there for like 2 hours. And at one point she was like, do you want to like just, finish this tomorrow? I was like, no. Because you know my thought. If we don't do it now, we're going to do it never. Right? Like, no. Give me a sec. Also, I was hoping I was close to getting a $2,200 sale. By the time I got the math figured out, I screwed myself out of $700, but whatever. My own damn fault. Calculator broken. Anyway, neither here nor there. You got to get in front of an appropriate number of customers. What I'm saying is I do love the big sales, and you should expect that if you get in front of 10 customers, one of them places a $1,000 order. But one mistake I do see a lot of reps make is that they do a very small number of appointments. They're in very small numbers, and yet they're telling me like, I need to make this much money. My goal is to make this much, or, I want to hit this target, but they don't have enough appointments where they could really count on that. So I'm like, yeah, you should expect a homemaker or a signature set sale with a 10% likelihood, right? But you shouldn't expect that if you're doing 5 appointments in a week that you're going to have a $2,000 sales week unless you get lucky. Does that make sense? So, and this I'd like you to write down. The numbers I'd recommend all of you be thinking about are 7, 10, 15. 7, 10, 15. If you're busy.
A week?
Yes. If you're busy. By the way, when I started this job, I was in college. I was taking 18 credits and I was playing on the D1 rugby team. So I was in the gym or on the field 6 days a week. And I was doing 5 a week. That was maxed out for me. In the summer, when I didn't have school, but I was still rugby training. Actually, I was bodybuilding at that point. So I was in the gym 18 hours a week. I was running 3.1 miles every day, 6 days a week. And I ran 18 5Ks in 16 weeks. It was ludicrous. I got big. It was great. Should have seen it. It was good. It's good.
Not big as that.
It was really good. But even then, with like 30 hours a week invested in the gym, I was still doing between 10 and 12 appointments a week. Does that make sense? Right? So it's gonna depend on your schedule, but I will say, even if you're busy, full-time student and working a part-time job, or full-time assistant manager and training to be a branch or a district manager, you should still be doing a minimum of 7. If you're not doing 7, something's broke, right? And you're just not getting in front of enough customers. Does that make sense? If your schedule's more available, that number should go up. For me personally, my number was I would book 20 and about 25% of mine fell through. So I was completing 15 a week, right? When I completed 15 a week, week in, week out, week in, week out, the worst sales week that I had was barely over $1,000. I was mad about that. I was salty. 15 appointments and barely sold a grand. WTF. Right. By the way, Ian Connors, I love that man. I love him. He used to work in the same office as me, but I never met him because he was away at college. He would just sell from school. So I never met him. And every time we had this damn board, stupid board, Ian beat me every effing week. And I hated him. He was like my arch nemesis. Mostly because I just couldn't beat him. I remember the first time I met him was actually at a division meeting. And he was like greeting people as they came in. I was like, hey, I'm John Godwin. And he's like, oh, I'm Ian Connors. I was like, no. It's real. He can tell you about it. It's funny. It's funny now. I do love that dude. There was one week, my worst week was barely over $1 grand. My best week was actually over $5 grand. Okay, $5 grand was a pretty strong week. I was like, I beat Ian Connors. And then he forgets all 6. Freaking nemesis. Didn't do it. My best week was $6 grand. My average week was 2,500. Right, so I could count on it unless something went really wrong, and sometimes it does. Right, but I was producing $2,500 a week consistently, not because I was showing rich people. In fact, in my life, I could count on 2 hands, like my 10 fingers. In my life, I could count on my fingers the number of times I've been in front of a really wealthy customer, and half of those times it was a no sale. Okay, most of my customers are middle class. Some of my customers are low income. I sold Homemaker Plus 8s and trailers. Right, I sold one. I remember vividly. I almost got shot. It was on Martin Luther King Boulevard in downtown Baltimore. You know it's bad. First off, you could have known it was bad when you drove down the street and there were on the entire street of row homes, 3 of them did not have the windows and or the doors boarded up. You could have guessed it was bad. You know it's bad though when they have those police like light signs that you push the button and the cops were around the corner. They had one on each end of the street. And my appointment was in the middle. It was bad. I was watching people selling drugs while I was doing my demo. Okay, I go in, customer was like, hey, do you want to come to like the back? No. Can we sit by the window? I like the window. I want to wash my car. It's real. And I sold a Homemaker Plus 8. Okay, and not like so. And my customers aren't rich. It's a numbers game. You guys tracking with me? So here's what I want to wrap up with, and then we'll get into scheduling. Is live your life by design, not by accident. Live by design, not by accident. So here's what I want you guys to do. And I'm going to walk you through the exercise, the same exact exercise that I did myself when I started on this path myself. For the managers, it might be worthwhile to take notes on what I'm teaching so that you could then teach someone. But I want all of you guys to actually answer the questions as we go, right? Mm-hmm. Number 1 is just start with your sales or your income target. There have been times in my life I've been more motivated by prizes and awards than by money. There was one time the company had a contest to go to Costa Rica for a week, and I would have done anything to go to Costa Rica. Didn't even care. Like I sold 10 grand. I made 50% of it. It didn't suck. I could have cared less about the money. I just wanted to go to Costa Rica for free. Right? So there have been times. By the way, I'll tell you, there was one year, I've gotten older and slowed down a little bit in my life. There was a time I would have done anything for a Rolex watch for free. Had to sell $1 million for it. Wouldn't have even cared about the $1 million. 7-2 comma club, 7-figure club. Wouldn't even care. Just care about that damn watch. Didn't get it. It's all right. It's all right.
He does.
Regardless.
For the jobs.
Regardless. There have been times in my life that the prizes and the awards did more for me than the money. Okay, there have been times in my life that promotions have meant more to me than the money. I remember when I was a college student, I'll tell you, juggling 18 credits and a D1 sport and work, that was hard. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But when I was that age, I was given an opportunity to test a brand new program that didn't exist at that time called Branch Manager. And there were 300 candidates vying for the job. Only one person got it. And I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about the income. In fact, I'll be honest, I was in college. My family would have covered me, right? Fortunately, I didn't need to ask them to, but it wasn't like I had to work or eat canned food, right? But to get that promotion, man, I would have done anything. I was the only one that got it, by the way, out of 300. Okay. Now branch manager is like a thing that exists. I was the first one.
That's awesome.
Okay. And then there've been other times that money was my big thing. You know, when I came back to the business, so when I quit the job, I was single. When I came back, I was married. Right. That changed a lot for me. I was like, man, it's not just me. It's my wife. She's counting on me. And I had to make enough money to support her. And I had a number in my head, and that number required me to sell $10,000 a month. And that was like everything I just told you about 2 hours of networking time, that agreement I had about the phone calls. That didn't start. That wasn't my life when I was in college. My life as a married man, that's how I operated my business, because not selling 10 grand just wasn't one of the available options. You guys tracking with me? So it doesn't matter, but you have to know what it is for you. And I'm throwing out some ideas as you might think of, like, what's my thing? And it's okay for it to change from 1 week to the next, or 1 month, or 1 year, right? It's okay for it to change, but what is it for you right now? Okay. Do you have a number in mind that corresponds with it? You do have to have a number, by the way, like Costa Rica, 10 grand to make my money was 10 grand, right? But you got your thing, right? And there's a number attached. No, yes. Gotta have that. I'll give you a second, because it can't be kind. It's gotta be, I got it. Give me a thumbs up when you got it. Cool. Number 2, based on your averages, how many appointments do you need to complete to hit your target? Okay. On average, 10 appointments scheduled equals $1,000 sold, just on average. Right, every 1,000 you want to sell, plan on 10 appointments, 2,020, 3,030, and so on. Now write down the number of appointments it'll take you to hit your target. Now, one thing you got to realize, and this is an area that I think a lot of reps underestimate, is that on average, 20% of your appointments are going to fall through. On average, 20% will fall through. So however many you need, you got to book 20% more. By the way, for me, I'm one of the most inefficient reps that I know. For me, like a quarter of my appointments fall through, just consistently. I would book 20, and I actually wanted to complete more than 20. I would have been happy completing 20, but I would book 20 and I'd only get 15, like religiously. So I just found out I'm just an inefficient rep, whatever. Now here's a tip for you. Again, one that a lot of reps underestimate. When your schedule starts to get full, it gets kind of difficult to book those last couple slots. Those last couple get tough. You know, when you tell a customer, I've got like a 9 o'clock or a 9:01, that's really all I have time for. You get a lot of, can you call me back next week when you have more time? Right? So what I found is that I would have my number, and I want to put 2 to 3 extra slots in my schedule. So what I would do is pretty typically my schedule would have between $23 and $25 signs in it, but I didn't actually have a goal of booking all of them. I had a goal of booking 20 of them. And when I booked 20 of them, I was happy. Does that make sense, by the way? So I built the inefficiency in so I could plan for it. I was designing my schedule, right? Instead of saying, oh, well, I couldn't get my last slot filled. By the way, I'll tell you this. One thing I used to do, and you can interpret this however it's relevant to you, but for me, when I was married, my wife was working a full-time job at a doctor's office, and she was working a second part-time job as a personal trainer. Okay, so what I would do on the nights that she would have personal training, which was usually 3 nights a week, I would also work late. Okay, so I would work late on the nights that she worked late. My Wednesday team meeting was a non-negotiable, and that was usually a night that she plan to do personal training. She was like, oh, I'll just do personal training when you work late. There were 2 nights a week, weeknights, that she didn't work late. And I would just make my last appointment at 4 o'clock. She would get off at 5. She'd be home by 6. So I was like, cool. If I do my last one at 4, I will also be home around 6. Right? And I just planned it that way. By the way, customers would ask me, can you come over at 7? No, ma'am, not that day. I got an appointment with my wife. Right? And then for me, I love working on Saturday. Saturday's a great day because people just got paid on Friday. They're feeling good, right? They got their Saturday morning cartoons in. They just buy all the knives on Saturdays. So I like to work until about 2, 3, maybe 4 on Saturdays. And then after that, Saturday evening was wifey time, right? And then Sundays, I had my PSP meeting. That was non-negotiable, but everything before the PSP was personal time. We would do church in the morning and then whatever until the PSP. Does that make sense? Like that was how I designed my schedule to fit also being a good husband, right? And then the other thing that you need is an appropriate amount of networking time and phone time. And I already told you my system for that. Saturday morning, networking time after breakfast before I started doing appointments. And then I already told you my agreement with myself regarding phone time. Here's what's cool. When it was all said and done, I could present my schedule to my manager or my wife or anyone. And I could say, I'm going to sell $2,500 this week. And they would say, how do you know? And I would say, look at my schedule. And I would walk them through what I just walked you through. And they'd be like, yeah, if you execute that, you'll sell $2,500 this week. And my worst week ever was barely over 1,000. My best week over was over 5,000. But out of 16 weeks, for 13 of them, I was within $100 of that $2,500 number. Within $100, 13 weeks out of 16. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And it's not because I'm special or necessarily even that good at selling Cutco. It's just because I worked the numbers and I designed, knowing my numbers, I just designed it to work out. Does this make sense? So before I go forward, do you guys need another minute to figure out what these numbers look like for you? You should know at this point how, like, what your goal is, number one. You should know how many appointments you need to complete to be able to get that done. And you should be able to look at your sheet right now and know how many appointment slots do you need to have in your schedule? How many of those do you need to actually fill to be able to complete, right? And then you should know if it takes you 10 phone calls to get one appointment, you should know how many phone calls you would need to make for the week. And then if you know you're going to be calling people 2, maybe 3 times, you just divide your number of phone calls by 2 or 3. That's how many numbers you need on your list. So let me do this actually. Let me give you guys a moment where you can actually work those numbers out. If you need to pull out a calculator, do it. But I'll give you a minute to work on that. And then I'll walk you through a couple schedule scenarios to get it done. Here's one example. What is this example?
That is a good
1,
example.
2, 4, 8. This is one way. If you're wanting to do between 7 and 10 appointments in a week, but you're looking to work like 3 to 4 days, like a typical part-time job, right? This is just an example. But I put up on Sunday, no appointments, skip Monday for the time being. Tuesday, I was like, hey, if you want to plan any day off, it doesn't have to be Tuesday, but if you want to plan a day off, have a 0. It's okay to have a 0, right? Wednesday, personally, I like to do appointments before the team meeting because for me, I'm like, if I'm already going to be working on Wednesday anyway, I may as well work on Wednesday, right? Thursday, an example of a second day off. You do you, but I like to work on Friday. For the honest truth, A, people just got paid, right? B, most people, for middle class Americans, most of them do happy hour on Thursday night. Most of them don't do it on Friday night. Okay, so Thursday night, in my experience, most of the middle-aged couples do happy hour or whatever after work. But Friday, most of them don't do a lot of anything. That might be like a movie night, might be like pizza or Chinese night. But I like to work on Friday because people just got paid. They're starting their weekend. They're in a good mood. So I put doing a couple of demos on Friday before you do your own personal Friday night stuff. Saturday, I mentioned already, is a great day to do work. A, because everybody's home and chilling. B, they just got paid. It's the weekend. It is a great time. So I put Saturday as my largest day of appointments with 4 or 5. And then the way I always look at Monday is, for the calendar, it looks like the beginning of the week, but for Vector, it's actually the last day of the week. So I always do Monday as needed, right? If I need 2 more appointments to hit my target, I'll do my 2 appointments. If I need 5 appointments to hit my target, I'll do 5 appointments. If I need 0, I take 0. Does that make sense? So I always do my Mondays on an as needed basis. But that is an example of working 3 or 4 days a week, getting 8 to 10 appointments done in a week. You guys with me so far? Okay. Another scenario for the same thing, I put up here, sell $1,000, 7 to 9 appointments, or 7 appointments completed, 9 book. This is another scenario, but it's not another scenario, is it? I just messed up the title slides. It's fine. This is the same exact scenario if you just did everything on Friday and Saturday only. Right? I just moved all the work, same number of appointments, to Friday, Saturday, and then I put 1 or 2 on Monday, again on an as needed basis. You guys tracking with me? You could sell $1,000 a week working just the weekends only.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I did want to share with you, man, I did not make these slides that well, but that's okay. They'll serve their purpose. They'll serve their purpose. That's okay. This was the schedule I used to work. This was the exact schedule, the one that I told you I could present to my manager, my wife, an investor, and say, you can count on me because, right? I had my, if you look at Saturday first, had my networking time from 9 to 11. I would try to do 4, 5, 6 appointments. I mentioned earlier, I like to be done by 4, but that is a great day. So that is a good day to go hard. Sundays, I didn't do any appointments before the PSP. And then I put my Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 9 a.m. phone time as needed, preferably not needed, right? And then you can see I put Monday, Tuesday with 3 to 4 appointments, but I had $6 signs, right? Wednesdays, I put in this scenario, not doing any appointments aside the team meeting. And then I put Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, $6 signs, but a goal of booking at least 4 of them, right? That's a scenario. Also, for me personally, I don't really take whole days off because I get bored. So I usually take half days. That's just me though. That's how I live my life. It's all good. You guys tracking with me though? So those are just a couple templates. At the end of the day, as long as the appropriate activities are in the schedule that are going to get you your results, you'll get your goals. So what I'd like to do is give you guys a minute where you can actually design your schedule. Okay, so you can take everything you just snapped out and put together a schedule that will accomplish your targets.